morning, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Sandra, and today we are going to go through the second video in my short series of setting up my 2023 Powersheets goal planner. So I'm calling this my prep work video. Again, it's number 2. If you want to see the first one, I will link that for you. They are not in consecutive order because I did have a lot of videos going up at this time. So let's get into it. So here is my planner. For some reason, these popped out. And I've already marked where I kind of need to start. So we've gone through, I brainstormed all of the ideas I had for the upcoming year. And I wrote down what's holding me back, what fires me up. And that video, I think it was an hour and a half. So and really, this section should be a lot shorter. And let's just talk about this for a bit. So now if you're new here and you don't have a Cultivate, wow, I can't talk. If you do not have a Cultivate What Matters goal planner and you're interested in purchasing one, I do have an affiliate link down below in the description box of this video. And they still have copies, I believe. I don't know if they have the Bluebird, but they do have other ones. And if you're just kind of watching for the fun of it, go grab a cup of coffee or tea and sit down and hang out with us, and let's get into this. If you're working along, I hope I give you some good inspiring ideas, but everybody's life is different and everybody will have different goals. So make sure you do you and kind of what passions and interests that you have going on in your life. Okay, so this first page that we're going to work on says learn from the past. So basically, you're reflecting here. You're trying to kind of see what happened in the previous year. And this is kind of how we learn from year to year. So you look at the things that went well, you look at the things that didn't go so well, and you try to improve upon that based on what you've learned. So like it says here, we write down a few notes on all the good things. So I'm going to write down this. I'm going to have to reference my 2022 Cultivate What Matters Powersheets because I can't remember everything. The challenges that we went through, and there are a few, but we'll get there. What I learned, so anything that I've learned from the lessons that we've gone through, these two things, and then gratitude. So I'm grateful for a lot of people, and technically, I don't like this section because it makes you write down, if you were grateful for everybody in your life, like your close family and friends, it just, it gets so tedious after a while because they do tell you to do this every single month as the end of month reflection. And I like down writing what I'm grateful for, but I'm always grateful to my mom. I'm always grateful for my kids. I'm always grateful for my husband and my husband's family because they've helped us out a lot. And so it gets kind of tedious. So what I'll do here, instead of specific people, I might write down what I'm grateful that they did, or more specific reasons, I think, because that makes more sense to me. So I'm just going to go through my previous planner to see what happened. So there are some months when I didn't necessarily fill in my month in review, but this is going to take a little bit of time. So I'm going to go through and write down, and then we'll talk about it as soon as I am done.
Now that I'm looking back, I can see all the signs I tried to fill in the cracks that were spread in my mind, but I was all out of hope, lost in an endless maze. The emptiness had unfolded just like a void, but you broke the
Okay, so here's what I learned, you guys. First lesson is that when you do your Cultivate What Matters goal planning and you go to the very back, this month in review is actually beneficial to fill out. There's tons of months when I didn't do it, and it's hard to look back and see what the positives and the negatives were for that month. So make sure you fill that part out. So let's talk about this. And it's kind of interesting looking back because especially I looked back at July and I was just like so overwhelmed by all the good things that happened that month and like the positive experiences. So first of all, and again, like I completely forgot about this. This year was the first year that COVID restrictions were lifted. So my son, as of February something or other, he didn't have to wear a mask to school. And I hate to say this because I know we're all done talking about it, but I think COVID really put a damper on our health, our mental health. My kids, like my poor son, my daughter didn't really get the brunt of it as much because she was a baby, but my son, I think it affected him in ways that are he's still trying to come to terms with, that he doesn't realize he is. And like now that it's just a distant memory, we don't really think about it as much, but and it feels like things are back to normal, which is like so good. It's just, I think it affected him, and obviously kids don't know how to express themselves as well as adults do. And even myself, like I remember how depressed I was at the end, especially towards, was it 2021, like in November, December. I was so depressed, and it was so difficult. And even January, I think for me, January, February are the hardest months to get through because of seasonal affective disorder. And it was really, really difficult, a really difficult time for sure. And I know a lot, like that can be said for a lot of people, but that's the good thing, is that the restrictions were lifted, and at least here in Alberta, and it was really good. So karaoke opened back up. That was a good experience. I wasn't pregnant yet when that happened, so that was fun because I do enjoy social drinking. I don't drink a whole lot, but when I do, I enjoy it, and I make sure that I do it with limitations, right? Like I don't go all out crazy with it. Um, Swedish death cleaning. That was one of the things I implemented for 2022, and it was amazing, you guys. So, along with our garage sale, which helped not only get us money back, which we put towards credit card debt, but also just the fact that we were cleaning up our home, we were minimizing. And so that's something I'm going to carry through till to 2023. Um, I want to maintain that. So, um, they say like if you purchase something, you have to let something go. So I'm going to continue, like some of my big focuses will be to get rid of the stuff in my basement, because when we do eventually buy that brand new home in 5 years that I was talking about in my budget planner, you know, that's our dream. Like we want to have a beautiful brand new large home, and we're going to need more space for our 3 kids, and just more space and less stuff and just everything in its place. And that's kind of my ultimate dream. Obviously my business is my one of my ultimate dreams too, but that's something I can constantly thrive on and work towards and work on and improve and get bigger, and just like, I'm trying to set my family up for success, and the only way to do it is to keep working every day. So for something like this, in between times while we're trying to save and pay off our debt, I can work on myself and my habits, and not purchasing stuff we don't need, and trying to get rid of stuff that's garbage or broken or that we don't need anymore. I don't need my childhood stuffies, I don't know, just something that I'm still working on. So we finally got our roof fixed. It kind of was a challenge too, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we did get it fixed with help from my husband's parents, and it was an expensive fix, and it was an anxiety thing, which we'll talk about. But we got it fixed, and that was a huge weight off my shoulders. Same thing with our vehicles. So again, we'll talk about how, like, the lesson I learned from these things, but The vehicle's fixed was a big one because my engine light was going on and off for the past like 4 years and I didn't know what it was. Turns out it was only spark plug, so really it was no big deal. But at the same time, I couldn't be stalled in the middle of the road somewhere with like 3 kids in the car, especially when I have my baby in January. So I'm very grateful that I finally got it taken care of. And it's very, very scary when things like that happen. So in May, I found out I was pregnant with our little baby boy. And so I'm about a month to a month and a half away from giving birth. And it's going to be really exciting. We've prepared, we're in the middle of preparing, and it's very exciting. So his due date isn't really set. Technically, it's January 14th, but I'm supposed to be induced 2 weeks early, but the date has not been set yet. So I can't remember when this video is supposed to go live, probably before that date. So I probably still haven't had the baby before this video goes live. And good things. So summer trips. When we went on vacation, we had so much fun this summer. Yes, it felt rushed because my husband worked a lot, okay? Like a lot. But we had our summer trips. We went to the family reunion. And it was just magical. It was so nice to be able to drive outside of our city, to get out of town, to go do something. Yes, it costs money, but yes, I did budget for it too. So it was really, really nice. This is probably the first summer that we've, not even just since COVID, but probably since like my son was practically born. It's probably the busiest summer we've had to date. We went camping twice. We went to my family reunion, which was technically also camping. And we went to our fair, which we haven't seen in 2 years. And we didn't get to see my son's grandpa as much as we wanted to because my husband was always working. But it was just the nicest summer to get out and explore and do fun things. So I'm really grateful that we had all those experiences. And I like to say lots of reading. I did read a lot, but I feel like there's lots of books I kind of let myself down on. Like I got bored or I stopped reading them or I didn't read them, like the 7 Habits, for instance. I probably still will, I just haven't. And I put them on my list for my goals and then I just didn't follow through. So there's kind of a little bit of disappointment. And then there's also like, I'm happy because I did still read a lot. I did read a lot for how busy I am. Let's just leave it at that. Okay, so now some of the challenges. So even though we did get our roof fixed and it turned out good in the end, we have some renovation work to do. Our bedroom has a leak in the ceiling from the leaking that happened, and basically our house needs to be torn down. We do have like it leaked through the wall, and so around the window casings there's cracks and stuff, but that's something that we are not going to invest money into fix. Like we don't have the money to get new windows or new insulation or anything like that, even though technically it does need to be done. If we were to stay here forever, we would have to like strip the whole place down and like start like pretty much from the basement up. But that's not going to happen. We're going to sell hopefully in a few years and then purchase something new. That's our big goal. And all of this leaking, like when it was happening right before we got it fixed, we had like rain after rain after rain. So probably for like 2 weeks straight, it just poured. And I was on my own. My husband was out of town and I had no idea what to do. I was petrified. I was so scared. And I was putting towels by the walls and trying to soak up all the water that was coming into my bedroom. And it caused me so much anxiety because at this point I was already pregnant. I was so anxious that I wasn't falling into depression, but it just made me sick to my stomach. Like I was so upset about it. And I'm just so grateful that that's one big worry off my mind, that I no longer have to worry about it. Okay, so again, my husband was working a lot. Even though we did have lots of fun experiences this summer, we had to really work at it and make it work. I know kids are resilient and I know they adapt easily and well, but it has been hard on my kids because they haven't seen their dad a lot. Even when he was working just 2 weeks at a time, so he'd work 2 weeks and then be home a week, that was difficult. And I was emotional when I first got pregnant and I cried every single time he left. So it was very challenging for me. And it's also challenging when I had all these other challenges, like my vehicle not working, the roof leaking, just various things that were really difficult to handle while he was gone. And it was stressful being on my own. Then the other thing, so I I don't know, like obviously I'm gonna have to change my schedule in the new year when I have a newborn. It's gonna be completely different. And even if I wake up at 5, my newborn might need to be fed. So I might not be able to film videos like I do now. So right now I woke up at 5 this morning and I'm filming this video before my daughter wakes up because she's 2 and she's crazy. She's my crazy toddler. And it works. But when this baby is born, that might not work. So I'm going to have to really find a workaround and find time to film between all of my kids. So that's going to be interesting. And in saying that, I might have to change up my schedule and change my video schedule too. And I won't know if I'm going to change it or what it's going to look like until the new year, until the baby comes. But right now, I know when I work in the evening or on weekends, my son says that I'm always working. So, like, for instance, one time he was like, Mom, can you watch a movie with me? And I was like, I have to edit a video, baby. I'm sorry. And he was like, You're always working. So, I want to try to get to a spot where I'm either off on the weekend or off as soon as he comes home from school where I don't do any work. And I've been trying, but when I add another kid to the mix, it's just going to make it harder. So, also things that were challenging, some journaling activities. My nighttime journaling, I did not follow through. So that was supposed to be one of my things I was adding to my evening routine. And I think it's definitely has something to do with me being pregnant because honestly, guys, at the end of the night, I'm just done and I'm done. Like I don't want to do any more work. So that might change when I'm no longer pregnant because I won't be as tired. But I know for this year at least, it didn't work. And then spiritual. So at the beginning of the year, I was so crazy about being able to get into spiritual books and doing meditation and even maybe doing some yoga, just kind of like getting into more spiritual activities. And that did not happen. Again, it's the time thing. They say when you select a goal, you can only focus on so many goals at once. And that's just one thing that unfortunately I wasn't able to keep in my routine and I still want to. So I'm going to have to look at my life and just see what's more important. That's the other thing. So spiritual stuff as well as art. So I actually love doing lots of different artistic things. I've never tried diamond dots or diamond painting before, but I love painting with acrylic. I love my colored pencil drawings. I love cross stitch. I like knitting and crocheting. Part of my Swedish death cleaning process, I actually have 3 or 4 containers of dishcloth wool. So, like, when you knit a dishcloth, I have tons of that cotton wool in my basement that I was going to give to my mom. And I mean, I've got tons, like probably over the years since when did I start? I was probably in my early 20s. I first learned how to crochet when I was in grade 4. So I was 9 or 10 when I learned how to crochet. I learned how to knit when I was in grade 6. So I've really been knitting and crocheting my entire life. But I started buying stuff. Like when my dad passed away and I inherited some money from him, I purchased a lot of stuff that I didn't need. And so a lot of that wool came from that. And I just kept buying ball after ball of these big chunks of wool. And they're the cotton you just buy from like Target or Walmart or something, right? For dishcloths. And each one is about $10 to $12, I think, from Walmart anyway. And I think I have over 50 of them. So like $500 in wool, which in the grand scheme of things isn't like a huge amount of money, especially if you're in like the crafting world, like making quilts or doing big blanket projects or big wool projects or knitting or crocheting projects. But for somebody who never crochets and who never knits, that's a lot of money down the tube. And so I was just going to give it to my mom because she does love doing that stuff. But then I figured, well, what happens when I get older? Like, do I want to hang on to this until I get to 50 or 60 or 70 if I live that long? Once my kids leave home, then I'll be bored again and I'll have time to do that stuff. But honestly, at that point, I would just go out and buy one ball of wool and work on that. And then once that was done, I'll buy another one. So that's kind of the point I want to get to is like minimalism, right? Like you use what you have and then when it's gone, then you buy another one. You don't keep buying just to buy. I think that was my problem. But with my with my other supplies, like I've got painting supplies, that stuff, as long as none of the paint is dried up. My brushes were a huge investment. I think I've spent thousands of dollars on paint brushes alone over the course of the last 20 or so years, because I was a big painter. I loved painting. So I would go to Michael's and I would purchase a $20, $30 paintbrush. And I just use like the small ones. I don't use like a long handle brush, because I feel like with some acrylics you can do like a standing easel, but I prefer easy to like, I think it's easier for me to sit at a desk and paint. So I do that. I do have a desktop easel that I did try using once, but it's a little bit difficult. So, but anyway, I do want to start getting into that stuff. But maybe I need to pick and choose. So for instance, maybe I won't be making dishcloths anymore because I was huge into making them for Christmas presents. Maybe I can give that wool to my mom and I'll make a sacrifice. So I'll give her the wool and, you know, the crochet hooks and the knitting needles, but I'll keep my art stuff. So I'll keep my expensive pencil crayons. You guys, I purchased Faber-Castell pencil crayons that were $500. $500, or maybe they were $600, because I have their special pencil crayon and they look amazing on paper, like amazing. They're not like your pencil crayon that you buy for kids in school. They are artistic drawing pencil crayons, okay? Like, that's why there's so much money. But I was seriously into my art, and that's what I want to get back into. So now, really, my artistic side only comes out in my business. So I use my brush pens and my markers for creating bullet journal spreads or creating hand lettering projects, but I don't do art for the intrinsic value of doing art for myself. I did sell portraits and pictures at one point when I was younger. It was probably in my teenage years, maybe 15, 16. I did sell portraits, but not in a professional gallery or anything like that. They were more towards like friends of family. So now, even though I'm doing my business and this is making me so happy, I do want to focus more on this stuff. So it didn't work last year. And is that to do with scheduling? Is that to do with focusing on certain goals? Yeah, like I need to focus. I do really want to get back into my artistic endeavors. I miss that stuff. That stuff makes me who I am. And so it's important to realize what you want out of life and who you are. And I miss it. Like that's me that I'm kind of leaving behind, I feel like. So I need to figure out a workaround to get back into it. So what I learned, I increased my sinking funds because I realized it's important. The big one, I was talking about this in my budget planner video when I was doing my setup, is that if I didn't have enough for sinking funds, I would put it on my credit card. So if I paid more for my credit card and not enough for my sinking funds, it was a complete waste because I was just charging back on my credit card. So in order to benefit myself, I need to save for the sinking fund so I have the money to pay for things out of our checking account and then still pay off debt and not charge on the credit card. Does that make sense? I hope so. So emergency fund, I realize the importance of having one. Haven't had a strict emergency, but probably there will be something that comes up. And I want to be able to have money in our emergency fund to pay for anything that happens. So we have about, I think it's $300 now. So we're starting. I mean, everyone has to start from zero, right? So you start and all you can do is continue. And so that's what I want to do I want to continue with our sinking funds and make sure that I am doing it every week. I've also realized family is the most important. However, I talk about budgeting a lot here. So I am getting better at budgeting. We're trying to pay off debt. Okay, and it's important to get your debt paid off and to not charge on your credit cards. And planning is key. Obviously, like I love my planner. I plan every day. I write stuff down. I still forget stuff all the time because I'll think about it in my head and then I'll forget to write it down right away and then I'll forget. Being spontaneous can be fun. So I remember there was one specific day and this kind of ties into like family and ties into budgeting. So there was one specific day I was outside in the yard with my family. It was hot summer in July. My mom was over and two things happened and it was very spontaneous. It was like boom, boom, boom. I found a baby bunny in my backyard. So technically it was the night before. I saw this little critter and I thought it was like a big gopher or like a big mouse or a vole or something. And I was watering my flowers late at night. It was probably like 11 o'clock, so it was already dark. And I saw it move, but I paid no attention because I'm like, oh, it was probably just a big mouse or something. And then the next day, I found this baby bunny. Good thing my dogs hadn't found it. And it was caught in my yard, and the mom couldn't get to it. So it was just a jackrabbit. But when they're babies, they don't look so scary. And it didn't bite me or anything. I picked it up, and it just hissed at me. I don't even know if I told you guys this, but it hissed at me. It was so cute. It didn't have fleas or anything like that. And it was adorable. Like, I was ecstatic for finding this baby bunny, but I realized I had to give it to its mom. And here we have a lot of coyotes, and like the rabbit population is out of control. And then as soon as it's out of control, the coyote population is out of control. Like, we live across from a school. There's a park with a community league right next to it because every school has a community league, and the playground technically belongs to the community league, not the school, which might be weird, but that's how it works here. And was it 2 or 3 years ago, there were like 3 coyotes sitting, and I think this was in the middle of the day. It was winter. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 3 coyotes sitting in the park, and they were chasing after the rabbits. And that's how bad it is. Like, physically in the middle of a city. And we do have like park area around where we live. So there's a few trees and there's like a nice park, but coyotes are in this park, and they're in the middle of a city. And they, even at my mom's house, she sees them walking down the road all the time. And so it's a huge thing. But anyway, so there's this little bunny. I put it outside the fence and I left him. And then the next day he was gone and I felt really sad. But on that same day, I found the bunny, and then also I heard an ice cream truck. So I got my mom to run out and flag the ice cream truck down so they would stop. I grabbed money and I got the kids some treats. And it was just the spontaneity of all that stuff happening at once. It was so much fun. I don't know. It was just like simple things, right? It wasn't like anything extravagant, but it was so much fun. And I want to have more of that because I'm more of a planner. I'm more of like, well, if we don't have the money, we can't do it. Or if I don't budget for it, we can't do it. Or I don't feel like doing this today, but like I have this scheduled for tomorrow, so we'll make sure we do that tomorrow. And I'm usually good at following through on our plans, unless I'm sick or I don't feel like it, especially because I've been pregnant. I haven't felt like doing a lot. I just want to make sure that I do more of that kind of stuff. And I find more of that happens in summer. But even this year, for instance, I want to be spontaneous. Like, as soon as I stop working December 20th, I want to be able to go and say, okay, even though I'm pregnant, I don't feel like it, let's go take the kids down the hill and slide on our crazy carpets or our, like, whatever, like slide down the hill and come back and have hot chocolate and cuddle on the couch, watch a Christmas movie. I don't know, just something fun that isn't necessarily planned all the time. The last thing I have under here is not to put too much pressure on myself because there's enough environmental stress and stress coming from outside sources like friends and family that do that for me. The only problem with that is the only way that I get things done and that I am as productive as I am, because you guys see my list, right? You see my daily list, you see my weekly list. I usually get a lot of stuff crossed off. If I wasn't so hard on myself, if I said, you know what, this doesn't really matter, I don't need to do it today, that's not going to get done. And especially when you are an entrepreneur, you have your own business, you work from home, the only one putting pressure on yourself to do anything in your business is yourself. You don't have deadlines from people like a boss saying, hey, by the way, you have to have this on my desk by Monday morning. The only person that's your own boss is you. So you have to be very dedicated to time commitments. You have to be very motivated. You have to be very organized. You have to plan. And so I think that's kind of where it's coming from, is that's where I put stress on myself to get these certain things done. And then when I talk to people, I'm just like, you guys don't know, like, especially people in my family, I'm like, you guys honestly don't see what I do every day. You don't see how busy I am and how much work I do. And like, honestly, it's true. They don't know. And it's frustrating for me. But then they're like, well, why do you put so much pressure on yourself? Like, you don't have to do all that stuff. And then just to try to explain, well, yes, I do. Otherwise, my business won't be a success. It's hard to explain that, if you know what I mean. Like, if you have your own business, you might get it, but it's very difficult. like there's a lot of unmotivated people in the world. I mean, you probably have them in your life, right? Like you probably know people who are like that. It's hard to get them to do anything. So like you can say either they don't want to do it, or if you ask them to, they'll do it, but they won't initiate it. And so for me, I find that the only person to initiate things, especially in my business, is me. And if I'm not in control of what I'm doing, who is? I would just be a big failure. And then all this money, all this time, all this investment would be for nothing. And that's not what I want for my life. So that's the pressure. And like I say, what I learned, but there's like this balance that I have to figure out. So between money, which is a big one, between family, which is obviously another big one. They talk about legacy in this book as well. That's a big one. So, in order to have a legacy, you need to work hard, right? You need to, whatever it's at, whether it's raising your kids, you need to work hard. Having kids isn't easy. Dealing with your kids every day isn't easy. Trying to help them study for school isn't easy. Dealing with their issues, like my son has ADHD, that's not easy. Life is not easy, and all we can do is constantly work at it and be consistent with it and try to be positive about it too, which is hard because there's so many other factors, like other people in your life that aren't positive, or environmental stressors, like, your roof leaking or your car breaking down. So you just have to take it in stride. And that's what I've been trying to do, is that there's always going to be bad things that happen, always, right? Um, and you just have to try to be positive throughout it all, but sometimes it's hard. And honestly, guys, it's okay to have a bad day. It really is. Like, if you want to sit there and cry all day, by all means, go and cry. That's one thing that makes me angry, because my dad used to tell me, and this was like right before he passed away. So I cried a lot because, and he saw me crying, and he was like, there's no sense in crying about it because it's not going to change anything. And I said, no, maybe not, but crying makes me feel better. It's my release. I need to do it. And that's kind of how it feels still. Like, if I'm upset about something, crying makes me feel better. And yeah, it doesn't change the fact that something bad happened or something good happened, but it does make you feel better. And then you're able to cope with it easier, I think. So, anyway, that's my big spiel there. Sorry I took so long to explain myself. So, gratitude. So, my friend Tressa and I reconnected this year. I think it was the beginning of summer. And I'm very grateful that she reached out to me again, because we hadn't talked for quite a while. And it's just nice, even though we don't see each other all the time, I do try to contact her at least once a week, and to try to check in and make sure she's doing okay. And still going to try to get together before Christmas. Also, my kids. Yes, they drive me crazy. I mean, I've got a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old boy. They drive me nuts, but they are so funny. So the times that they make me laugh and crack me up, and I don't know what I would do without them. Like, they are the loves of my life. And I think they're hilarious. And actually, my son has gotten comments from school that he is the funniest boy out of his entire class. So I'm really grateful for that, because it always helps to be, a funny person, and making people laugh is one of the best things you can do. It makes, not just makes people like you, but I mean, it makes people happy. So I'm really glad that he has that ability. And my daughter, she's funny too. She's only 2. She doesn't know she's funny, but she's hilarious. Like, she cracks me up so much. And my mom, so she has been specifically helpful in that anything I need, like, my mom and I have an interesting relationship. We'll just leave it at that. But anything I need, she's there. So if I need her, she's there. And I don't want to take advantage of that, because I know she also needs help. Like, she was saying the other day how she wished she could have help too. Like, sometimes it would be nice for her to have help, because she's not like married right now or anything. But at the same time, the independence that she has is so good. It's so good for her, because a lot of people don't have that. They don't give themselves the ability to be independent and to do things for themselves. And the fact that she always helps me, I'm very grateful for, because my husband has been out of town a lot. I'm also grateful for my husband because he's been working so hard. So, like, usually he works 2 weeks and then he's home a week. But in November, going in October, November, December, he worked for 5 weeks, and then he came home for 1 week, and now he's working 6 weeks. So it's very hard. I mean, I couldn't imagine working out of town away from my kids for that long. Again, I'm a mom, and it's a bit different for moms than it might be for dads. I just feel very grateful for my family. I'm also grateful for his family because they've helped us out quite a bit, mostly financially, I guess, because his mom runs a full-time business herself. It's her business, and that she's always busy, so she hasn't really been able to be around too much, but she does try to FaceTime as much as she can. Okay, so moving on, because I know that took forever. So now we have to evaluate where we're now. So where we are now. It says naming where you are now will help you know what to cultivate in the year ahead. It says give each of these a rating between 1 and 10, along with a few thoughts on why you chose that number. So number 1 means you're not satisfied and want to see a big change, or 10 means things couldn't be better. Then mark the 3 areas you mostly want to grow in the next year. So I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and this is where we'll stop. So name what matters. So I've just got this page, and then we're done. When they say community, I don't really know what they mean by that. What I should do is pull out my Cultivate What Matters books. Let's see if I have them. I'm kind of confused by this. I'm just going to look to see what they mean by community. So it does have friendships on here. Okay, so it's talking about mostly like friends. I don't really understand that, but okay, I should just call it friends because I don't really have involvement in my community per se. I've just been too busy. Friends, I would like to get to see my friend more, just we've both been so busy. So even if we could have like, maybe not weekly meetups, but more like maybe monthly get-togethers and then like just weekly phone calls. So I'm going to put us at a 7 or a 6. Weekly texts, phone calls, and monthly get-togethers. And honestly, like, because my friend Tressa just had a surgery, and so she's still healing, and I haven't been able to see her because she's been under the weather, but she did volunteer to help me with my stuff in the basement, and that might be a good opportunity because I think she might be the only person that might be capable of doing that with me. I think she might be. Everybody else that I can think of, I don't think, like my mom, every time I show her stuff from my childhood, she's like, oh, I remember that. Don't throw that away. You can keep that for your kids. But my kids don't want that. Like they want all the new stuff. They don't want my old crappy toys, you know? But my friend Tressa might actually be the only one who could help me with that. So I'll put that on there too. So my Rubbermaid Swedish death cleaning situation scenario might be something I can tackle in the new year, and I can get her help with that. So family, it depends if we're talking about immediate family, like my mom and my sister and my husband, or if we're talking about like my entire family. But I'm just going to focus down on like my immediate. So I'm going to put 7, and I'm going to say reorganize, schedule for more family time. As far as my husband goes, like he has to work, but in the new year, I think it'll be easier because he'll be home more. It won't be working as much like we have been doing. So I think it'll get easier. Okay. The next one is finances. So I'm going to put that as a 6 and 7 because there's always room for improvement there. So improve credit score, paying off debt, taxes will be coming up. Sinking fund savings, just kind of be aware. I'm already have good habits when it comes to like the daily and the weekly stuff, but just be aware that like I'm not purchasing stuff that I don't need, that's not necessary. So finances is definitely going to be one of those things we'll be focusing on. It's a priority. I think this is kind of where things start. And then as we grow that and as that improves, other things will also improve. Fun and recreation. Again, I'll be having a newborn come January, so I don't really know where this stands. I'm going to put a 5 or a 6. New baby at home. We stopped going swimming. We are going swimming today as the filming of this video, but today is like November 27th. And I've pretty much stopped because I've been pregnant. So once the baby comes, like going into the new year, I want to start doing that again more often. So I'm going to say plan for summer trips. That kind of ties into budgeting. Okay. Health and wellness, or maybe like do a movie night with my son, like actually go to the movie theater because he's been asking about that. Health and wellness. So this one, I don't know. I'm going to say 5 or 6. I want to start drinking more water. I don't really do much exercise outside of like daily home activities. I don't live at the gym. That's definitely not who I am and not what I do. But I just I don't really know how to work on that, other than taking my meds. Maybe get more or improve my taking my asthma inhaler because any movement that I do gives me asthma. It's really bad. So I have to start taking my inhaler twice in the morning, twice at night. Because I could be climbing the stairs and all of a sudden I could stop breathing. So it hasn't been great, but maybe eating more vegetables and fruit. That's definitely something that I should be working on. Home and spaces. So this is going to be another thing that we'll tackle this year, but probably more towards summer. So I'll put a 6, and they're going to be mostly summer projects, which we'll have to time ourselves properly because if we want to go on vacation as well, and my husband works out of town so much, so we'll be cleaning up after Christmas. So that's something that we'll focus on at the beginning of the year. Also, I'll put here filing cabinet because I'll be cleaning out the filing cabinet. These are more goal ideas, but I'll just write them here anyway. Also finishing the flooring this summer. Painting, fence, and bedroom. Bedroom is the big one. Garage cleaning. And basement minimalize. So try to get that stuff cleaned up. Okay, spiritual and personal growth. So I grow from all sorts of things in my life. So whether I'm working on my art projects, working on my business, talking with different people, I haven't had a chance to be spiritual. I want to. I haven't had a chance. It's just like working out at a gym. No time. Honestly, there's no time at all. So I don't even know what to write here. I'll just say commonplace book because that's kind of like learning. And then also continuing my journaling because I consider that personal growth. And then work and learning. So technically, again, that's more learning, but that's fine. So work is going pretty good. I'm going to say it's at a 7, but there's always room for growth in my business. So I haven't quite decided here what this is going to look like because it's going to change. So change schedule in new year, evaluate where I'm going and what I want to do with my life, with my business. So yeah, so that's interesting. But I'm not going to put too much value on this because there's always room in all of these categories for growth. And I do have all of my goals already kind of in place, already written down. But from what I wrote down on the first few pages, like you guys, I had so much. I feel like they didn't give me enough room. I had so much that I had to write it on a separate sheet. And so I know for a fact that I cannot focus on every single one of these things. Yes, they fall into different quadrants. They fall into different times of the year. So one will be like the first quarter, something else will be the second quarter, but I still can't focus on every single activity on this page. So I'm really going to have to narrow my goals down. And I think this is going to help me do it. So for instance, so it says mark the 3 areas you most want to grow. So I'm going to do home and spaces, finances, and then what else? Maybe my business. But I want to focus on my business, but I also don't want to take away from my family. So maybe I'll check off family because, like I said, family is one of the most important things besides for finances. So you can support your family. And work, I'm not putting it on the back burner by any means, but because I'm having a new baby, I need to focus on my family. So I'll have the new baby, a newborn in the house. I have to focus on my other 2 children to make sure that they don't feel jealous when it comes to the new baby. And again, that will be a definite adjustment in January and February. For the first quarter, that will be my focus. And then maybe once the baby gets a bit older, we can start working on other things. Okay, so last page that we're going to talk about this time, we're already at almost an hour here, is cultivate your mindset. So what has shaped your beliefs about your identity? So I think to some extent, our beliefs are shaped, our beliefs about who we are as people are shaped right from birth, right? Especially in our years growing up as teenagers, we kind of look to other people to see how to behave and what's good and what's bad. And like, if I do this, will people make fun of me? And now, after I've had kids, I honestly don't really care what people think, to be honest. I'm going to buy whatever I want to buy. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, as long as it's not detrimental to the health of my family or myself. And like, honestly, I think comparing yourself to others, that's a huge thing growing up, but I don't know about so much right now. Um, I think what others have said about you, because you kind of look at yourself like you don't really know who you are or like how people see you. I think your identity is who you are and the things that you like to do and the beliefs that you have, but it still is shaped by other people to some extent. Like what people look at you, like you might think, oh, I'm a nice person. And the other people might say, oh, no, you're not, you're judgmental or you're not very nice or whatever. Even if you act in kindness, they shouldn't say things like that to you. So I don't really know how to feel about this question. Definitely my childhood. Um, I don't know. I'm just going to leave it there. So now it says rewrite your self talk. Changing limiting self-talk can free you up to pursue your most purposeful year. Name any negative thought patterns below them, write how you might reframe them. So it says, I'm bad with money. So I don't really know how to answer this question. What have you believed about yourself? So it says, I'm lazy and unorganized. I don't think that, though. I don't know what to think. I'm going to try to come up with some ideas here, and then we'll talk about it when I'm done. So, okay, here's a few hard truths I had to face. So, number one, I work too much. Yes, I do. I work a lot and I need to find a balance. So, I mean, this year, I know I did one word of the year before because all of this will lead up to like a word of the year, right? I did a word of the year before that it was called balance. And I think that might be again because my family is increasing. So I need to focus more on family, less on business. Not less on business because I love what I do, but more on relaxation time, art, and my family. And um, but my positive self-talk is I work hard to provide a home for my family, but not just a home. I work hard not just in my business, but I work hard um, like keeping my family organized. Like it's hard to keep all your kids organized. That's what your planner is for. But I spend time on my planner. I spend time doing all of these things that, I do it in the background that my husband and my kids, they don't know that I do this stuff. It just everything seems to flow good for everybody else, but it's because of me that is organizing things in the background. And I know a lot of other people can say the same thing, that, your lives or your family's lives might not be so flowy and livable for them and comfortable for them because you're not there, or that you are there doing all of those extra things. So, um, I work hard to provide my family a loving home. Like I make sure that my house is clean. I make sure they've got food to eat and that I make them food. And I make sure their clothes are always folded and put back in their drawer. And I work hard for my business so that, not just the fact that like I'm happy and productive. If I don't feel happy and productive, they're going to be miserable because I'm going to take it out on them and I don't want that. So I need to do stuff for myself that makes me feel good too. So, another one, I'm not a good friend. There have been times where I haven't always contacted my friends or listened to them or communicated or talked with them at all. And so I'm learning how to be a better friend. And that's part of my goal process by doing like a weekly friend check-in or um, like even if it's like a get together once a month, that's fine as long as we do that and I follow through with that. If it works out on my friend's end as well, I spend too much money. So here's one. There has been times in the past when I have spent too much money. There's definitely reasons. Like when my dad passed away, I was really depressed, and I splurged and I bought stuff I didn't need. So now I'm learning this balance. I'm learning to be minimal. So stuff I purchase, if something comes into my home, I need to get rid of something else. And then I have to say to myself, okay, if I'm willing to buy that, what am I willing to get rid of in order to buy that item? And so, like, if something needs to be replaced, like some of my brush pens are going to need to be replaced within this year. So, like my Tombow markers, I have like $600 worth of Tombow markers. I use them daily. I use them every single day. They are not, I think I had a comment on my channel actually the other day saying that I was a huge collector of brush pen markers. And then this is kind of one of the things about self-talk. It made me feel really, really terrible. You guys can kind of like I don't need you to make me feel better because I talked myself out of saying like replying because I thought, well, I don't need to justify that with a response. But this person said, in quote, I'm a huge collector of brush pen markers. In other words, I don't make anything useful, but all I'm doing is driving up the price on the market for other people who can't afford to buy stuff. And the person said that I needed retail or I needed to see a therapist or something along those lines. And so that brought me right down and I felt like a piece of, you know what? And I thought, why would somebody say that? Like honestly, like you tell other people who also collect stuff and you say that to anybody, no matter if they collect stuff or not, that's going to make them hurt, right? It's going to make them feel bad. So why would you say something to make somebody feel bad? Because we already have enough negativity in this world. Honestly, I was like, really? And they said, like, I spend too much money and drive up the market for other consumers. But the thing is, so are you saying that I shouldn't own that because you want it? Like, are you jealous of me because I own it and you don't? Or are you just one of those political people who just like to say stuff just for the sake of saying stuff? I was very confused anyway. I was confused and hurt by that comment. But I use my products on a regular basis. So I don't buy any more brush pens unless I know I'm going to use them for something. And so like if I was just planning in my planner and not doing a bullet journal or not doing art or not doing hand lettering stuff, why would I have all my brush pens? I'm not going to go and get rid of them all. I have gotten rid of some, but only because they are either dried up or wrecked or whatever, but I usually give them to my kids, so they still get use out of them. So anyway, so I'm learning to save money. I'm learning to be minimal. I'm learning to put money in sinking funds. So if there is something I want, like a big purchase, I'm learning to save up for it as a sinking fund. Here's a good one. I'm too bossy. Definitely definitely bossy. And I say I take a lead in organizing my family and my life, right? I do have to maybe cut it out, but also at the same time down below, I say I'm so truthful sometimes that I can be hurtful. And then my positive self-talk is I'm honest to a fault because it's better than being lied to. So this is one that I always have believed honesty is the best policy. I am truthful to a fault. I do tell people the truth, even though it might hurt them, but I think that it would hurt less saying it that way rather than having them find out that they were lied to later on. That's always been the biggest policy of mine, and maybe it has been because I have been lied to in the past. And honestly, I'd rather the person would have come to me with the truth sooner so that I wouldn't be hurt. And yes, maybe this is a product of something that happened to me, but honestly, isn't honesty the best policy? Like, sometimes I shake my head because there's people who are like, no, it's better to lie to somebody to save their feelings. But if it was me, I wouldn't want my feelings saved. I want to be told the truth, which kind of comes back to this one where people see you like you don't always see who you are, but other people see you for like from their perspective. So again, we have to remember that everybody has a different perspective, and your perspective is based on who you are and how you grew up and things that you've gone through and your experiences, et cetera, right? So when you're mean to somebody, if you say something cruel to somebody, that person is going to be offended, or they're going to be hurt, and they're going to be sad, and they may cry. But they have to realize, as I have realized, that where that person's coming from isn't to be mean to you. Like it's not because of you necessarily. It's because they grew up, that's how they grew up. Maybe somebody said the same thing to them and that's all they know. Or maybe, like they're a hateful, I don't like to say hateful person, but maybe they've got a lot of negative self talk, and that's how they feel about the world, or that's how they feel about themselves. So they reflect that on you. And that is something that you don't realize until, like, unless you're super smart, you get it in your 20s. I didn't realize that until my 30s. Basically, when I started having kids, then I realized, like, hey, you're being mean to me. It doesn't mean you're mad at me. There's something going on with you that is reflecting on me, but you don't mean to be mean to me. It just does hurt when people are mean to you, right? So it's hard to deflect that and to reason it out in your head. It's easy to get down on yourself and be like, oh my God, nobody likes me. Like, everybody hates me. This person was so mean to me. And it's not that you have to develop a tough skin. You just have to realize, like, hey, they're not coming from a very healthy place. And it's not me so much that they're bothered with. It's something that's happening to them. So how can I help them? I don't know. It really is a give or take. There can be really mean people in the world and they can say terrible things. And I still think the best policy is to be honest. Um, and I also tend to play devil's advocate with a lot of things. So like I always try to argue the other side, even if it's like a negative side that people don't want to hear, because I think it's helpful to know both sides of something. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but this kind of makes me who I am. And again, this is my my power sheets. So if you guys feel differently, I'd advise you to write something completely different in yours. Like I said, rewrite your self-talk. So like you need to write down what you feel like is negative self-talk in your life, and then rewrite that to make it seem more positive, or maybe write it so that you can work on that in 2023 as a goal. So anyway, guys, that is it. We are at an hour and 12 minutes. Holy smokes. The next one will be, I guess, video 3, and that one will cover the bigger picture. So things that matter and don't matter. This one here. So this is going to be a big one probably. And then making decisions. So what I'm saying yes to and no to. And then where do we end here? Let's see. Focusing. So this will be a good brainstorming area, and then a rough draft of goals. So I feel like I've already done a rough draft of goals, but I think this would be an area where I would take all of those goal ideas I wrote on the main page and make it smaller, just kind of break things down. I'll go back to that main page and cross out things that I'm probably not going to get to, because again, it all comes down to focus, it comes down to time, and it comes down to the importance of the things in your life. So anyway, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this session. Make sure you click on the bell button so that you will be notified when I post the next one. Like I said, they are not consecutive. These ones might be coming up. I can't remember how I scheduled myself for December, but anyway, I hope you guys are following along and that you're getting some useful information out of these. I know I've talked a lot and I do kind of get deep when it comes to this. It is very personal for me, so that's why I don't want to offend anybody. So please take everything I say with a grain of salt, because this, again, it is my Cultivate What Matters power sheets. This is how I feel, and this is kind of what makes me me, and my goals for next year reflect that. So please don't take offense. I do not mean to offend anybody at all. I'm just trying to explain how I get to the things I get to. So please, if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please subscribe, click on the bell button, and I will see you guys in the next one. Okay, take care, y'all.